Hi, and welcome back to Purposeful Woman podcast. Today we have a beautiful Michelle Marie. She is an astrologer and tarot reader who is dedicated to helping her clients understand the spiritual lessons and avenues available to them through astrology and tarot. Astrology, tarot, and Vedic studies provides the keys to questions regarding career, relationships, family, finances, and anything else involving one's current or past lives. Well, hi and welcome, Michelle. So happy to have you with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Victoria. I really appreciate it.
Well, as always, we will love to hear your story, how you get to do what you're doing right now. And it's so spiritually unique, right? Doing
Oh,
astrology. It's
of
very
course it is. It's a lot of fun.
interesting.
It
Interesting
really
science.
is. Well, I first got into astrology when I was 9 years old and I was in Girl Scouts, and we were going to get our astronomy badge, which is up in the island of Hawaii, which was where I was a Girl Scout. So we went up in this beautiful kind of campsite area, and we set up telescopes and we started identifying the different constellations, and I just had such a wonderful time. And my best friend at the time was on the trip with me, and she mentioned that she was an Aquarius, and I looked at her and I go, what's that? And she goes, oh, it's related to the constellation Delphinus. And I'm like, what does that have to do with astronomy? And so she told me a little bit about it, and that her stone was an amethyst, and I just got hooked on it. I thought it was so interesting that we could relate the stars to our personalities, to our path, to the way that we express ourselves here on this plane. And so I went to the library and I looked more and more into it. And I was a little bit of an introvert when I was in elementary and middle school because I moved around all the time. I grew up in a military family. So it was my way of connecting with my peers by guessing their sign and asking them questions and just getting to know them with astrology as a way of kind of breaking those barriers and being less socially anxious. So then I went to fast forward college, and I was joining a sorority, and I successfully guessed almost every single girl that was in my sorority that I was actually trying out for, because we have this thing called Rush. And absolutely loved it. They gave me this beautiful lettered sweater with the astrological symbols on it. And I actually got a job working at a metaphysical clinic while I was in college. And I did charts for 20 bucks, and people would come in and sit down and I would read their charts, and it was a lot of fun. And I found that it was not only enjoyable, but it brings people a lot of healing, a lot of direction, and just a lot of joy to be able to have some kind of a compass in life.
I love that you're sad and it helps to break the social anxiety. It's like you just come over to somebody and say, hey, my stone is amethyst and I am Venus. I can imagine that will be fun.
It is, and I like people like hearing about themselves. I noticed that, you've got all these people around you. Do you have a Leo rising? Because you're just a very gregarious, fun-loving person. And oh, by the way, my name's Michelle. And so we would just get to talking, and it's really interesting how much people are willing to share when you show interest in their personality through the stars. And I have a genuine interest in it. So yeah, it was definitely a way to break through some social anxiety that I was dealing with.
That's beautiful. So we're speaking here a lot with entrepreneurship and how do we build our businesses. Like, what was your challenge on building, and what was something that you, not that you regret of, but something you wish you could have done differently in your astrology business?
Well, I started out in clinics and they were a lot of fun. So I would go to, spiritual bookstores and events and places like that and do readings. And it was actually a lot of fun. Now, what I've noticed has really changed since technology has taken over, because I've been studying this before the internet. So is that more and more people are going to their phones, they're going to their computers, they're going online for readings. And so I've had to completely reconfigure my practice toward meeting with people online. And so, just getting on Zoom, figuring out backgrounds, just the speakers and the right camera to get. So that's kind of how my practice has really changed. But it's also allowed me to connect with people from all over the world and with other astrologers and join different groups. And I mean, I have clients in New Zealand, I have clients in England, I have clients in Australia, and I get to meet some of the most incredible people from all over the planet. And I didn't have that opportunity when I was working in physical locations. So that's a really major business shift that kind of took me some timing. Like, you get your first camera and microphone and it's dark and you look weird and you're trying to give a reading and it's like something falls over. So that was definitely a challenge in the beginning. But I think I'm starting to finally find my bearings and going completely online.
I love it. It's definitely really, really useful to be able to just go on the phone and have a reading. I remember getting my first readings when I was young, and there was no internet. There was internet, but it wasn't in such a use of like every day as we started in COVID.
Mhm.
Tell me more about what would you like to share? What advice you would like to give our audience who would, let's say, perhaps doesn't know about astrology, or
Well, the
um,
first thing I did, especially when I was younger, was I just read, read, read. So there's all kinds of resources online, in print that you can use. And, one of my favorite Vedic astrology books is Nakshatras by Kamala Sutton. Highly recommend any book by Kamala Sutton. She's absolutely excellent. And I also connected with two Western astrologers, Amy Zerner and Monte Farber, and they just came out with a fabulous book called Mindful Astrology. And it's Western astrology, and it's finding peace of mind according to your sun, moon, and rising sign. So that's a really good current book that you can get on Amazon. So read, read, read. And, a lot of people ask me the difference between Western and Vedic astrology. And what I tell people is, Western astrologers, which is what we're used to, it's like, what's your sun sign? That's the more common one. They use the tropical zodiac, beginning with the sign of Aries at the northern hemisphere of the vernal equinox, always or around March 21st of each year. And the Western zodiac is drawn based on the Earth's relationship to fixed designated positions in the sky and the Earth's seasons. So it's very Earth driven. And Western astrology was actually developed by the Sumerians who settled in Babylonia from 4000 to 3500 BC. So it is a very old science. And back then, each Sumerian priest or astrologer ruled a different province and dispensed divine wisdom to their followers. And they had built these large observatories. They were built to study the movement of the stars and of the planets. And by the time the Babylonian culture reached full maturity, they developed what we now know as the modern zodiac. So they developed that there's 12 signs, there's 12 houses, each planet is associated with a god or goddess or personality type. And so your birth chart is it's laid out in a 360-degree circle. And this circle is then divided into 12 divisions of 30 degrees out, each like a extra large pizza. And the signs are then divided into 3 decans of 10 degrees each. And then these degrees of separations are called aspects or degrees of orbs. And that's what we look at as astrologers to really analyze a person's chart. Now, Vedic astrology instead uses the sidereal zodiac, which corresponds to the observable and measurable points in the sky. So the sidereal zodiac is star-based, and it measures the actual astronomical position of the planets against the backdrop of the fixed star constellations. So there are 12 houses in both practices. However, the planets can be in different houses due to the 24-degree difference between the two systems. And the oldest form of astrology is Vedic astrology. It was actually developed by the rishis in ancient India, and they were scientists and scribes of the Vedas. And the Vedas are ancient Hindu scriptures written in early Sanskrit, which contained hymns and philosophy and guidance on spiritual rituals. And they developed this really amazing spiritual science as their way of ensuring a constant renewal and progress of India's spiritual tradition and culture. So there's a lot that goes into this, and it's actually Vedic astrology is between 8500 BC and 10,000 BC, so it's even older than Western astrology. So it's a science that's been around for a really long time that I encourage people to look into because it's been found in almost every culture around the world in every language, and it can tell you a lot about yourself, about your journey here on Earth, and it can
beautiful.
provide you, with a lot of direction.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. As always, as we're running out of time, I always ask the last question that I want you to fill in the blank, and the sound like this. If you really know me, you will know, if you really knew me, you will know that I am.
If you really know me, that you'll know that I am. I don't
It's like it can
understand
be
the question.
funny, it can be anything. It's you filling the blank. If you
Oh,
really knew me, you will know.
if you
What would
really
you
knew me,
like?
that you would know that I was a Gemini rising, Leo sun, Aquarian moon.
Okay. No, I definitely don't know what that means. For that, you get to, I know that Michelle have a free gift and that you get to talk to Michelle for her to transcribe that, to really unpack that. What does that mean? So tell us, Michelle, where our audience can find you.
Oh, they can find me at astrologicaltarot.com or at astrologicaltarot on Instagram.
Beautiful. And for gift, we will link this in episode somewhere around there for 30 minutes free reading from Michelle. Thank you so much for your generous gift. And I'll see you in the next episode. And don't forget, as always, to subscribe and give a like or rate it or give a comment to our podcast. Thank you so much. Thank you and bye. And if you love this episode and you would love to see more of that, click the subscribe button to Purposeful Woman Podcast. And don't forget to text us to stay in tune with the Purposeful community for awesome tricks by texting to number +1 401 399 4105. And we will link descriptions in the episode to all of that we mentioned today. Bye. Turn your one day to day one with a purposeful day.